Well, good morning once again. You know, I've been here maybe 25, 26 years now, and over that time period, I've given a lot of announcements, done a lot of meditations, given a lot of lessons. But when I fall out of the practice of doing that, like this morning, where everybody's gone and I've got to do a simple little announcement, I just get totally confused. Have no idea what I'm doing. The bulletin doesn't make any sense. The chimes aren't here. It's crazy, so I apologize for that. For those of you who are new here for the first time, that's just the way I am. Unconditional acceptance. This week, I was having a difficult time with the talk, so I called my cousin Ozzy. Many of you have heard me talk about him before. If you haven't, he lives in South Dakota. He's kind of a redneck guy. Doesn't know very much about anything, but he knows a little bit about everything. So on occasion, I call him and ask for his opinion. And so I called him up and I says, Ozzy, tell me, in your opinion, what makes for a good sermon? And without hesitation, he says, you need a good story at the beginning. And he said, you need a good story at the end. In the beginning and the end should be as close to possible to each other. My feelings exactly. Anyway, life is basically simple. We as human beings make it complex. We complicate things. You know, sometimes life becomes the enemy and we struggle with it and we wrestle with it and we try to change things that are unchangeable and we get irritated or mad because something has happened, it's in the past and it can't be reversed. And we worry way too much about things we don't need to worry about. We have a inclination to get upset very easily and to calm down very slowly. We spend more time in the darkness of worry, anxiety, and fear than we do in the light of love, peace, and harmony. But it's all choices. Every single thing is an individual choice. And no matter what is going on in our lives, it's the choices we make that determine the quality of our life. Now, the quality of our life is primarily based on the degree of uncertainty we can live with comfortably. I want you to think about that for a moment. The quality of life is based on the degree of uncertainty we can live with comfortably. And believe me, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. We have no idea where the global peace movement is going. We have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day. The future is pretty much a void in regards to what might happen. A lot of uncertainty going on. We don't know what's going to happen to ourselves. Things change side by side. But it's the level of comfort we have in the midst of that uncertainty that really makes life exciting. It makes it enthusiastic. It makes it very comfortable and easy. Now, this one thing that determines our comfortability with uncertainty is trust. Trust is a major factor. If you don't have trust in your life is going to be one that is right on the edge. It's going to be anxious. It's going to be nerve-wracking. It's going to be uncomfortable. Trust is essential. As human beings, we have three primary values. Everybody in this room has these values, and those are things that we put first and foremost in regards to what we want to experience in life. And the first one is peace. Peace of mind. No matter what is going on in your life, no matter how difficult a situation, how big a problem, how much of a challenge you are facing, if you have peace of mind, you can move through it. You can manage it without a lot of distress or without a lot of stress or without a lot of misery that comes along with it. It's just peace of mind, and we're able to practice that to the point where we can maintain peace of mind through the good times as well as the difficult. The second value we hold to is harmony. Harmony is the most natural state of the universe. It is our most natural state when we're in harmony with ourselves. First of all, the internal harmony, and we're also in harmony with the world around us. There's a sense of belonging. We feel like we're connected with God. We feel like there is a purpose and a meaning to our life. Harmony is essential in order for our mental, physical, and emotional health. And the third thing, of course, is love. The greatest experience we can have in this world. Love is free. Love is there. It is available to us. We can never run out. It can never diminish. It can never be taken away from us. It's just that sometimes we make the choice not to focus on love, but rather to focus on the opposite. Now, when I talk about trust, I'm talking about three things which I'm going to get into in a minute. But first of all, first and foremost, it's essential, I think, that we have trust in God. And that's very difficult to do because God is somewhat of a mystery. God is beyond our senses. We don't know where God is, what God is, who God is, what God does. We just know that God is the creator. God is the provider for everything that is. God is the spirit within us. But sometimes we fall short and we don't trust in that God. Perhaps because God is invisible. Perhaps because we're impatient and we don't know if God is going to come through like we hope God will. So just for a moment, I would like to run a little test or an experiment on how strong your trust in God is. There was a man who was walking through a field of tall grass in a foreign land. It was late at night, and he lost his way. As he continued on, it got darker and darker until it was pitch black. He couldn't see more than a foot in front of himself. And then all of a sudden, he heard a rustling in the grass, and then a low, guttural growl. He assumed it might be a tiger or a lion, so he took off running as fast as he could, even though it was pitch dark and he couldn't see where he was going. Well, in his haste to get away, he ran off the edge of a high cliff. Started to fall. Luckily, hit a branch that was growing out of the side of the cliff on the way down, was able to grab a hold of it and break his fall. So there he was, in the dark, all alone, fearing for his life. Well, after a while, as we all do, when things get tough, when we have a problem, when times are difficult, first we stew over it, and then we get angry, and then we get fearful, and then everything falls apart. So he went through those stages as well. And what do we do when we get to the end of the line and there's nothing else to do? We turn to prayer. We pray to God. And that's exactly what he did. He says, "Dear God, heavenly creator, please save me. I don't want to die. Dear God, will you help me out of this situation? If you do, I will do anything." And a booming voice came down from the sky that said, "Let go of the limb." And that wasn't exactly the answer the guy was looking for. He said, "No disrespect, God, but is there anyone else up there I can talk to?" And God said, "Let go of the limb." The guy shook his head. Now let me ask you, if that was you hanging onto that limb, growing out of the cliff in the pitch dark of night, and God told you to let go, would you? I don't know if I would or not. The man didn't. He continued to hang on until his arms got numb. His entire body started to ache. His mind was racing with all sorts of fear and torment and worry. And he just hung on and hung on and hung on, even though God said, "Let go of the limb." Well, eventually the sun began to come up. And as the light spread across the land, the man hanging there on that limb noticed that he was hanging a foot off the ground. But he didn't trust God, so he went through time and time and time and time, agony and torment. Now, I bring that up because it's a beautiful story about us. When we have a problem or we have a challenge or we're facing some sort of a incident that's not comfortable, we hang on. We don't trust in God to provide for us what we need to move through the situation. We stand back and we resist it and we worry about it. And eventually, it gets to the point where the problem comes into our life, the problem goes out of our life, and we manage just fine. Now, as I said earlier, there's three values that we have, and that's peace, that's harmony, and that's love. When those values are aligned with the choices that we make, life is good. When they're not, life isn't so good. We need those two things in our life, and they all rest upon the foundation of trust. The second place where trust is important is in our relationships. Now, every single aspect of your life, everything about your life involves a relationship, no matter what it is. Every thought, feeling, attitude, reaction, or action that you have is relating to something. You have a relationship with your wife, you have a relationship with your life, you have a relationship with God, you have a relationship with yourself, you have a relationship with other people, you have a relationship with other things. Everything is a relationship. You take your relationships away, and there is nothing there but the I am. And so your entire life thank you. So your entire life experience is based on relationships that you have, you relating to other things in the world. Now, the problem comes into play when those relationships that we have aren't harmonious, they aren't peaceful, and they aren't loving. None of the values are present in there. And the primary reason for that is always because there's a lack of trust. Trust is essential in any relationship, whether it's a very close, intimate relationship, whether it's a relationship with your neighbor, whether it's a relationship with somebody you're sitting next to on the bus. It doesn't make any difference. You have to have a degree of trust. If trust is not there, life is going to be miserable. It's as simple as that. And when you're involved in a relationship with somebody and there's not trust in that relationship, it subtracts from your life rather than adds to your life. It's a detriment. It's a debit. It's something that you don't necessarily need in your life to continue on to your higher good. Now, I've got friends through the years that I've developed who I don't trust. We still relate with each other. In discussion group this morning, I was talking about a good friend of mine who just cannot seem to hold a confidence. No matter what you tell her, you know she is going to go and tell somebody else. I don't trust her to keep a secret. I don't trust her to share some of my most deep inner thoughts. I still like her as a friend, but without the trust, there just isn't that motivation on my part or that incentive on my part and to get together and hang out with her. I have another friend from college, and I'm going back for my high school reunion later this month, and I know that he's going to be there. We were great friends for about 8 years. In college, we were playing cards, and he got caught cheating. And I still consider him a friend. I guess I like him, but I don't trust him, so I don't play cards with him anymore. But it's those people that you cannot put your trust in, that it's okay to kind of move them outside that circle so that your life is basically one that your relationships are trustworthy. And trustworthy is a key point. There's two schools of thought when it comes to trust. One is just trust everybody immediately until they give you evidence, until there is evidence that they're not trustworthy, and then you adjust accordingly. And the other one is to allow your trust to build in smaller baby steps where the person earns your trust. And the more you're around them, the more you discover whether they're trustworthy or not. Now, there are three primary things that indicate trustworthiness. And the first one is dependability. If somebody tells you something, can you depend on it being true? If somebody says they're going to do something, can you depend on them to actually carry through and do that? If somebody says they're not going to tell anybody something that you've shared with them, can you depend on them to follow through with their word? Dependability. Can you trust them to do what they say they're going to do? And if they're not dependable, there is no trust, and they're not trustworthy. The second thing is benevolence. And benevolence simply means, when it comes to trustworthiness, that no matter what, the person is always going to have your best interest at heart, no matter what is going on. No matter what you've done, no matter how difficult life is, no matter what is going on in the workplace or in the family, they have always got your best interests at heart, and that never changes. You can trust that person, that they're going to give you advice that they think's in your best interest, that they're going to have your back, that they're going to be there for you. Benevolence, essential for trustworthiness. And then the third thing is integrity. Do the people that you create relationships with have values similar to your own? Do they value peace? Do they value harmony? Do they value love? What are their values? And the integrity comes into play when they live those values. They just don't profess them, but rather they live them. And you can count on them to have their choices be aligned with the values that both of you share. 3 primary things for trustworthiness. Now there's an aspect to this world where there are people who aren't trustworthy. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's a genetic disposition. I don't know if it's something they learned growing up. I don't know if they've been hurt very badly in the past or whatever it is. But they just can't. They're not dependable. And they're not benevolent. And they don't have integrity. And they could be very wonderful, nice people other than that. There's a story about a frog and a scorpion. They were sitting on the riverbank. And the scorpion says to the frog, I need to get to the other side of the river as soon as possible. Can I get in your back and will you swim me over? And the frog says, oh no. I've dealt with scorpions before. I'd get halfway over there and you would sting me. The scorpion says, no, I promise I won't sting you. So the frog finally concedes. The scorpion hops on the frog's back. They start swimming across the river. They get halfway. The scorpion stings the frog. As the frog's dying and sinking into the river, he said, you told me that you wouldn't sting me. Why did you? And the scorpion said, because that's what scorpions do. They sting. Well, liars lie, cheaters cheat, thieves steal, and it's a second nature to them to be able to do that without a conscience. And so when you move into a relationship where you discover that there is some deceit or there is some untrustworthiness going on, it's very simple to simply move them aside and not allow yourself to become vulnerable or not to take a risk with the person. And that is what trust is. That's the most difficult thing about it. When you trust something or somebody, you are becoming vulnerable. You're opening yourself up. You're creating the potential for you to get hurt by that person. And it is a risk. But love is a risk as well. And we all have a choice that we can go through our lives being very selective with who we love and who we don't love because we're afraid we're going to get hurt or we're afraid that they're going to betray us in some way. But that's not life. Life is opening your heart up, loving everybody until they give you reason to step back, and then you love them from afar. And loving them from afar doesn't mean the same thing as loving somebody that's close to you. It simply means you just wish them well. When Jesus said, you've heard in the past an eye for an eye, I say forgive your enemy. Love the person that smites you. And what he was saying is, don't get all caught up in hate or anger or rejection or criticism. Let all of that go. Just love them from afar and wish them well. So as we go into meditation this morning, I want you to think about your life. Are there any areas that can be improved upon simply by adding a little bit of trust? Are there some people that need the benefit of the doubt in your life that you can restore trust in them because it was broken many, many years ago? Whatever it is, trust is the foundation upon which we build our life, and from that come the values that we really worship. We'll now move into meditation.